Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. And we'd like to call to order the Rutherford County Benefits and Insurance Committee meeting. And the first item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the last meeting. And do we have a motion? Motion to approve, Ms. Hickerson and Ms. Allen, second. Did anyone have any corrections or additions? If not, then all of you in favor of that, please say aye. All right, motion approved. Okay, the next item on our agenda is our financial condition, and Ms. Street, we'll let you address that, please.
Yes, sir. If you refer to Fund 264, we will begin with the month of December. Our per employee per month claims ended at $943 compared to prior year of $1,031, with a year-to-date average of $968 compared to prior year-to-date of $904. Combining our on-site medical clinics, our total per employee per month increased to $983 compared to prior year of $1,060, for a year-to-date average of $1,009 versus $935 on prior year. Within Fund 266, ending in the month of December, we're at a year-to-date of $301,693 compared to prior year of $333,836.
Okay, that's her report. Do you have any questions or comments?
I have one question.
Ms. Allen.
Every month, the numbers always go up year over year. And I'm just curious, are you comfortable with the percentages that you're seeing based on overall trends? I just think that might be a good thing to talk about.
Yes. So we will, as we look at these from month over month, we do look to see what we are trending at. Right now, even though we're up slightly on a year-to-date average, as you can see from month to month, they fluctuate pretty heavily. And we know what those driving factors are. So as an example, we'll see it drop in the summer months for obvious reasons, you know, vacations, things of that nature. I'm not seeing anything within the numbers that give me heartburn just yet. We'll go ahead when we begin in March with the discussions about our rates. We will build in a normal trend line into our rate calculations, and that allows us to stay ahead of the curve in these monthly adjustments that we're seeing.
Okay, thank you then very much. I was negligent in not introducing our newest member of this body here, and Ms. Shantae Sherrill, who is an employee with our planning department, and welcome aboard. And she's going to be exposed to some complicated discussion here in a bit, so she'll get a good first meeting experience, I believe. So welcome, thank you. Okay, Mr. Good, would you please address our workers' compensation and OJI status?
Good afternoon. In the month of December, we had a total of 9 injuries requiring medical attention. You'll notice the breakout there in front of you. Just to mention and remind you that OSHA's set up on a little bit different. We're set up on a calendar year, not the fiscal year. So therefore, the December was the end of the year for OSHA, and we completed the year with 185 injuries requiring medical attention. The total OSHA recordable were 117. We had 53 of those requiring restricted days, 38 lost time days, and 26 all others. If you go ahead and look at the next page of your report, you'll notice where we're comparing the year we just finished to the 2 previous years. And in 2013, we had 183 injuries. 2014, we had 224, and we completed 2015 with 185. As far as the incurred dollars, just to remind you that the claims usually take 6 months to a year to close. The way the incurred dollars are is the estimated cost to close the claim out is assigned to the claim, and then if a claim remains open or if the treatment goes up, then there's dollars added to those incurred dollars, or if it's reduced, then of course it's subtracted. The claims for 2013 and 2014 have both closed out. 2013, the year totaled out $319,000. 2014 was $277,000. Unfortunately, this year we've had several claims early in the year, and right now the incurred dollars for 2015 is $511,000. Of course, now like I said, not all those dollars have closed out. It could come down, but it could also go up slightly as those claims close out. In the month of December, those 9 claims that we had, the incurred dollars were $12,827. The 9 claims, 4 of them were with the Board of Education, and the dollars assigned to those was $2,100. The county had the remaining 5 claims, and the dollars assigned to those was $10,727. The next page of the report then shows where those claims are broken out in the county, the 5 between the sheriff's office and the county clerk's office, as you see is represented there. I also wanted to report for the year's total. I told you it was 185. The total incurred dollars I mentioned were $511,403. Of those claims, 99 claims last year were for the Board of Education. The total dollars estimated for the Board of Education was $302,683. The Highway Department had 7 claims. They were $55,786. And the county had the remaining 79 claims and totaled out $152,933. And then again, the next page after that for the county, it broke the county general down into the different physical locations, and you can look through there, you can see where those locations, they had those injuries for the 79 claims.
Questions for Mr. Good? Mr. Marlin?
I know it's early, but how are we looking after the snowstorm last week for January for this year?
Actually, we did very well this year. We've only had 1 or 2 minor ones that were reported. So therefore, I'm kind of encouraged this year as compared to last year. Last year, unfortunately, we did have quite a few that were related to this and did run up quite a bit. The last page of your report, just to kind of mention to you, you'll notice that we have a copy of the OSHA Report 300A. OSHA requires every employer to post a copy of this for the period of February 1st through April 30th of each year in all county buildings. And I've sent this out to all department heads. I would ask that every member here and anybody that's listening to this, please look at your local bulletin boards in the buildings, make sure that it is posted, and make sure it is for the proper year. 2015, you'll notice in the upper right-hand corner there, it needs to be posted. Another thing, believe it or not, OSHA does do an annual inspection of us, and I was contacted just this week, and OSHA has already scheduled our inspection this year, and they will be down to visit us on March the 8th. Now, that visit, we don't know what they're going to want to see or who they want to see or anything like that, but we are aware that we're going to get a visit on March 8th. And they do an annual inspection for all county facilities, or government entities and all. Oh, they'll be looking at a lot of your policies and procedures. They'll want to look at your bloodborne pathogen. Have you done your right to know, lockout, tagout program? How are we doing our record keeping properly? Our OSHA 300 log that I keep and everything. So they'll be looking for copies of that.
And have you completed all the department, or have all the departments completed their bloodborne pathogen and other training as required?
Actually, I'm waiting for feedback from 1 department right now out of 9 bloodborne pathogen programs. The Correctional Work Center They sent me an email the other day saying that they've got 1 or 2 signatures left to get on theirs, and they will have it. So
you'll
I am-
have that prior
I've got them all
to-
but that one.
Perfect, okay.
Stevenson?
Is there a checklist that the OSHA goes by that maybe the departments could have just to check their departments to make sure they're in compliance? Do you have like a checklist?
They don't have a checklist per se. I've asked in the past for that, and they almost tell you that their checklist is their manual. I have gone online, and you can download, and I can get some different types of, I've had several different types of checklists. If somebody's wanting to get a copy, I can provide anybody with several different types of checklists and things like that if they'd like to see it.
Ms. Allen?
Are the community care employees included in these numbers?
I'm sorry, what?
The community care employees, the nursing home?
No.
No, because those are not Rutherford County employees technically, and we don't do anything for their OSHA. They manage that internal with their own organization.
Are they on the health insurance?
They are on the health insurance, but that was a grandfather situation that was allowed through county commission.
That's one thing that we'll always have to remember is it must be for work-related injuries and OSHA, you must be a county employee. And we have a lot of employees, for example, if you're a substitute with the Board of Education, you're not an employee of the Board of Education, you're actually an employee of an agency that provides those employees to us. The health department has both state employees and county employees. And so there is a thing where you have to almost check and make sure that you are a county employee when we get involved in this.
Any other questions for Mr. Good? All right then, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Next, we will hear from Ms. Kelly Perrion regarding wellness.
Hi, good afternoon. I'd like to give you the wellness report for the November and December 2015. Our Wellness on Wheels team visited 10 Rutherford County schools in November and December. Those are both short months because of the holidays. We saw 179 employees at those events. Our Q4 group activity was a Stop Stressing and Stress Management program. We had 70 people complete that, and Bonnie Cox was our drawing winner for completing everything the post-survey included. She got a massage to a local day spa, so she's really happy about that. Our November and December one-on-one wellness coaching through the MedPoint clinics, we had 86 total visits for November and December. And on the next page, I asked Patricia Cox to put together a chart just to show you how much this program has grown over the course of the time that MedPoint has worked with the Rutherford County. Those are broken down by the years, are different colored lines, so you can see we've made a lot of progress, and it's grown by leaps and bounds. The yellow line on the top is the current year, 2015. In 2012, we started and saw 61 people. So really proud of her. She's put a lot of work and effort into that program. The Know Your Numbers Wellness Initiative for 2015 has concluded. We had 91% participation, so 9% of the employee population on payroll is having the wellness fee assessed by payroll deduction. This is for the employees and their covered spouses needed to complete the blood work biometrics screening as well as the online health assessment. So the majority of our people and their spouses did complete that. So we have 439 people being assessed the additional $300 fee for 2016. The next year, this year, campaign, we are going to stay with the same requirements that employees and their covered spouses have the biometrics as well as the online health assessment at mysigna.com, because we are going to, we have decided to not put an additional change in for this current year, although we did want to discuss today about the possibility of moving the deadline up. We would like to propose to move the deadline up to September 30th. The last couple years, the deadline has been November 30th, that we've provided everyone from January 1st to November 30th to complete those 2 screenings. At the end of the year, that means we just have 30 days to do all of the checking and processing for the providers to get the screening forms into Cigna and for Cigna to process those and then update the reports for us to turn around and do the payroll deductions the first or second week of January, and it gets really tight. Always we have to go back and do some refunds, request refunds, because the processing isn't finished.
We'll let you finish this, and then that's next on the
so
agenda.
sorry.
That's all right.
So sorry. Okay, next on the agenda.
Just giving you a bit of an advance notice. All right. Here we
Advance
go.
notice. So we're going to talk about that next on the agenda. The possibility of moving the deadline. So you can just be thinking about that right now. Upcoming activities. Our Wellness on Wheels is scheduled to continue the remainder of our 2016 calendar. The Life Services EAP webinar for the month of February is 10 Relationship Essentials, and we are registering for spring training, the first quarter group activity. Anybody have any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Perrion? This 91%, Ms. Perrion, do you have a number that, for the previous year that,
The previous year, we did have higher participation, but compared to, any company or any organization, 91% is very high. It's very good percentage of participation.
oh,
Generally it's 50 to 60, 65%.
all right, thank you. Any other questions for her? So you may just stand aside there with us here, Ms. Perrion. Who's going to lead this discussion? You've already started it on
Sorry.
Know Your Numbers, changing
So
that
sorry.
deadline. So you and Ms. Street, how do you want us to continue this discussion?
So I'll begin if that's okay, Ms. Perrin. So one of the things that Kelly noted earlier is the tight time frame in which we're trying to finalize reporting, obtain the information from Cigna, and report that to payroll. We can make corrections where that where that needs to be, but that's not optimal in terms of employee service. One of the things that we noticed this year, and Ms. Barnes had brought this to us as well, that we didn't notice in prior years is the confusion level about the date being November the 30th as opposed to the open enrollment period, which ended November the 3rd. For some reason, there was just difficulty in keeping those 2 dates separate. And we have worked with individuals, we communicate regularly about these things, and the thought was that it may make it more streamlined for them if we close out one campaign before we begin the open enrollment process, which is a separate campaign. So in discussing this between Ms. Perrin and myself, and also, speaking with Ms. Barnes, it was felt that January the 1st through September 30th would give adequate time, as well as separate those 2 deadline periods. And that way, all the communication about the wellness initiative would be complete before the packets arrived in the homes regarding open enrollment, and we could just mitigate some of that.
Okay, so you've heard that bit of discussion. What's the wishes of the committee, and do you have further questions?
Add one thing. Could I add a piece?
Yes, ma'am.
Another thing that we originally had this lengthened out for 11 months to be convenient for the employees and spouses to have a long amount of time to do these 2 things. The MedPoint Clinic ran about 5,000 of these screenings, and they did over 50% of them in about 50 to 60 days. So I'm not sure that we necessarily need to keep it open that long. They don't need 11 months to get it done.
All right, Ms. Barnes, you have your mic in your hand there.
If it's appropriate, I'd like to make a motion that we set the annual dates for this wellness campaign each year to begin 1/1 of that year through 9/30 of that same year, and make it consistent from this point forward. I think it's a very wise move. It does separate the two campaigns, and I think the message is very clear each time without mulling the dates together.
We have a second. All right, Ms. Harvey. Further discussion, Mr. Marlin.
So just so, make sure I understand then, can you go back over the whole process so that,
Explain the criteria, Ms. Farron, of what it will be this year.
So from 1/1/2016 to 9/30/2016, all employees and their spouses that are covered currently under the Rutherford County Insurance Plan should take a biometric screening and have the wellness screening form filled out and sent to Cigna. Cigna has an additional service this time. We can upload those screening forms directly we can go online, log into our My Cigna account, take our online health assessment, and upload our screening form to them directly now.
and then the open enrollment will start,
Last 2 weeks of October.
and you mentioned that most of them were done in 2 months. What 2 months were those?
The majority of the screenings were done in October and November, like right at the end, so. If we did move to the September 3rd, since we're moving to the September 30th, I think that it would be good because the teachers will be out for the summer. So maybe if they wait to the last couple of months like they have in the past, they'll be out of school. So that might be helpful to them as well.
And
Marlin.
has this already been communicated out yet?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
We wanted to get your feedback and see if we could get the date nailed down first.
Ms. Hickerson.
Just for clarification, this is all well and good, but what is going to happen for the folks that went through their physician for blood work in October and November if they have to do it 2 months early, if Cigna's not going to pay for the blood work and stuff?
I would just recommend that they go to the MedPoint Clinic.
And secondary to that, we'll work with Cigna to ensure those claims are not denied and that they're processed through.
Okay, other questions? One more question, Mr. Marlin.
Last one. At the October, they can't get that done at the October wellness, right?
No,
We
sir.
used to, but we're not anymore, right?
We did one time provide service that was with the Cholestech machine. However, we have decided that we prefer to have the fasting and the fasting screening because it makes it easier. If some of the population does a fasting screening and some of the population does a non-fasting, it makes it more difficult to, look at the numbers of the results later. So it's easiest for us to do one across the board. The wellness fair that you talk about is from 3 to 7 in the evening, so we don't expect to have people fast for the most of the day.
Okay, we've had this discussion then, and we do have a motion that we set the dates from 1/1 to September 30th of each year for that time period for which they should get their biometric screenings done. If there's no other discussion, all of you in favor of that, please say aye. And those that are opposed? All right, let the record reflect it's unanimous. Thank you, Ms. Perrion. Okay. We have next on the agenda an item that says retiree language. And Ms. Street, are you handling that discussion?
Yes, sir. And I'm sure that for some of you all on this committee, you feel like the subject never goes away. Here we are again, talking about the GASB language and the retiree medical plan eligibility language that is currently in place. And I'd mentioned this last month. We have had an unintended effect of the spousal carve-out process. Some families have made the decision that they still want to maintain family coverage in one place, and therefore our employee would move off of our insurance onto the working spouse's insurance plan. Well, what that has done is stopped their calculation for retirement. Because the way the current language is written, you have to be on the medical plan for the insurance qualification period in the years immediately leading up to your retirement. So someone who is currently going to retire in 2 years, who decided to go ahead and get off of the county insurance and go on their spouse's insurance plan, will not be eligible for retirement benefits, because the current language says it has to be the years preceding to and leading up to retirement. Originally, it's my understanding this language was put in place because we wanted to prevent people from not participating in the county insurance, jumping on the last 5 years of their employment here, and then having retiree insurance for the remainder of their lifespan. Hopefully what we've gleaned a little bit more as we've talked about some of these rates and the cost of insurance and what we're looking at on a per year basis is that we are spending a lot of money, and they are potentially spending a lot of money to stay on our insurance for the purpose of having a net retirement. And I don't believe it was ever our intention to have people work for us for the qualification number of years and then surprise, you don't have retirement insurance because in 2016 you decided to go on your spouse's insurance plan and you broke that period of coverage leading up to your retirement. So the recommendation is to remove this language from the current guidelines as it pertains to retirement. They would still have to meet the minimum standards. So as an example, an employee with less than 6 months of service would need to have 15 years on the insurance plan. That is 15 accumulative years over the course of employment is the recommendation, not the 15 years immediately and leading up to retirement as it's currently written. So someone who may have just left and gone on their spouse's insurance, but has been on our insurance plan for 5 years, 10 years, whatever their required period is, would be eligible to come back as a retiree at the point they decide to retire from the county as an employee.
Okay, do you understand the first part that she was discussing, that third bullet point there on that page is the bullet point that you're suggesting that we just take out of the plan and everything else stays,
Yes, sir.
take out of this plan description, you might say, and everything else remains the same?
Correct.
Ms. Harvey?
Okay, just for clarification, so if you have a person that is working and has the plan for 5 years, and then for whatever reason, like is has been off for having a baby or gone to the spouse's insurance, and then comes back and does 5 more years, drops the county's insurance, and then comes back and does another 5 years, and then they retire, because they've got 15 years total, they would qualify for the insurance.
Correct.
It doesn't have to be consecutive.
Right, it would be accumulative.
They don't have to be on participating in the plan at the time of their retirement.
Right.
As long as they've got the number of years in place that's required through these other several bullet points thereafter. Mrs. Stevenson?
What will this do to our GASB liability? Because part of the reason that we did that is so that it would prevent us from having those type things occur, which would reduce our liability long term. So will this then?
Well, 2 things. One, we have not requested a GASB liability reevaluation. We did request that they look at it when we were doing the spousal carve-out piece, and you're going to have a cancellation process there, because we've also removed members off of our insurance plan that are currently on it that have the ongoing long-term liability attached to Rutherford County. We can do that. My expectation would be that we would see a cancellation because we are not maintaining multiple members of the family over the period of our current liability. And as people become more consumer savvy, we see today already retirees who are coming off our insurance because the insurance is unaffordable. So the expectation is not that it would greatly reduce or greatly impact the GASB.
Ms. Barnes?
Make sure I understand. I know we're talking non-consecutive years as long as they meet the eligibility criteria listed. My other question is, they don't have to be on the plan at the time of retirement. They can choose to retire and then ask to be back on the plan if they meet the years?
Correct. Right. And I want to remind the committee that eligibility is determined by the employee's participation on the plan. So if I'm a smart employee, this is what I would do. I would go ahead and jump off our insurance plan and go to my spouse's insurance plan, but I'm going to stay on the county plan as an HRA participant, employee-only coverage. It doesn't cost me a dime. It costs the county a whole lot of money, right? It would be my primary. I would have my spouse's insurance as my secondary, and I'm going to stay on it for 15 years because it's not costing me anything, but I'm going to be eligible under the current language in order to retire with benefits from Rutherford County. And in return, the county will spend tens of thousands of dollars for that premium for me during the course of that 15 years that they wouldn't have had to spend.
Okay, sort of in summary to this is the full benefit to the employee that may be found in this particular situation. They've not lost what opportunity they have to use county health insurance after their retirement. So it is nothing except a win-win for them. Is that correct, number one?
That's correct, right.
Number two, we don't know if it has any real bearing, if any, maybe some minor bearing on our future actuarial liability of cost, but we don't think it's appreciable.
Right. And the other thing, too, is there is ongoing review of all of our active plans, retiree plans, so we are constantly looking and evaluating that process of how we can make an offering to employees and retirees that are consistent with current programs that also reduce our costs and have cost-saving aspects attached to them. And every time that we make those type of decisions, it has an impact to our GASB liability.
Ms. Harvey?
Okay, when are you, if we agree to this, when would this go into effect?
We would make it effective on 1/1/2016. We would make a retroactive effective date, which we've often done from a benefits perspective.
Okay, so if currently we have someone that had, through open enrollment, who didn't know about this coming up and has stayed on the plan, but when they hear this, they might want to go to their spouse's plan, they're locked in until the next open enrollment.
I would adore the fact that our employees would be that savvy. I think it's, in general, people struggle with insurance, and that is not the thought process. They have looked at it and decided to stay on the insurance because that's where they wanted to be. The ones I have concern about are the ones that went off the insurance not understanding the impact. So we will continue to communicate as we always do, but we communicated last time that people need to vet this process and become consumers in their insurance. And anyone that's on the insurance today is because they have made that decision to stay on the insurance today.
Okay, so we've had this discussion. What's the wishes of the committee? Ms. Hickerson?
Okay, I was here when all of this happened, and our intentions was to not hurt any of the employees. We had to draw a line in the sand, and it did and does affect some of them. So I think in the best interest of our plan and the ones that have made the wise decision to go off and everything is to strike this language out. And because what we're requiring, the employee has already put in money into the Rutherford County Fund because we're self-funded. So I think this would be a good move in that if they are off, they are saving on the county's part of not paying their matching. And so I think would be, like Mr. Burgess said, a win-win for everybody. So my motion is to approve your recommendation.
All right, do we have a second? All right, Ms. Barnes and Ms. Harvey both want in on that. Okay, so what we have here, that language in the third bullet point will be eliminated. That's the motion that's on the floor. Any further discussion? All right, all of you in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? All right, so that's approved. Okay, now the fun begins. All right, Mrs. Street, you may start this discussion of the selection of a broker of record / consultant.
Yes, sir.
Be patient and get ready with your questions.
All right. I'd like to invite Mercer up to the podium. They'll be our first finalist to speak today. This will give them an opportunity to hand out any information that they'd like to hand out to the committee members as well. So if you'll come join us up front here. So we issued a broker of record consultant bid as was approved by the committee to move forward with. And a selection committee and myself has worked very diligently over the last few weeks, interviewing the prospects who submitted bids as well as diving into the information. It's been a very long and tedious process, and I appreciate the members of the selection committee who participated in the many hours that they have to help get us to where we are today. We've narrowed it down to 2 finalists. They each have been given 30 minutes to present to you, and then you'll have an opportunity to ask questions. In the bid proposal, the things that we were looking for was a broker consultant who could go to market for us, achieve the best savings within the marketplace in terms of products and their pricing, who also was very knowledgeable about wellness, cost savings, employee relations, everything that makes a program run very smoothly and work well. And as we interviewed them, those are the areas that we would talk to them about. How will you continue to support Rutherford County in their efforts to move our program forward while containing costs and addressing employee relations in a way that we don't become known as the employee department over in risk management, because that's always the goal. Insurance is tough, and it's a lot of information to communicate to people, and we need a partner that can help us achieve those goals and objectives I've just set forth. So we've invited Mercer to come today. In the spirit of full transparency, I want to let you know these 2 individuals up front here, Ms. Haley and Mr. Harrell. I've worked with them in the past. In my prior life, I worked for a TPA. We had mutual clients. They were the broker. They got to, keep me in line, and they did their jobs very well. They were great advocates for their clients, I can tell you that, and they worked very hard for their clients as well. I also want to let you know that Jay Brown, who was formerly with Cowan Benefits, has joined Mercer. He's not here today. They can talk to you about what his role is within Mercer and answer any questions that you have about that. But I want to go ahead and put those 2 things out on the floor so that you are aware of those things. All right, Ms. Haley, it's your turn.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emily Haley. If Mercer is selected, I will be your primary contact as your new employee benefits broker and consultant. What I want to highlight for you today is that we have a full team here. We've got a few folks here in the back as well as a few up here. This is your local service team. I want to highlight for you that we are all responsible for client delivery. We work with clients directly, and in no capacity are we part of sales or business development. So we are your local service team. We are excited to be here today, and we are absolutely happy to have this opportunity to speak with you this afternoon. Unless there are any questions, then I'm just going to jump on into the presentation based on the 30-minute time frame.
Ms. Haley, before you continue, can everyone hear okay? We're concerned that maybe the microphone isn't working appropriately. Everyone here in the back? Okay. Oh, the fan's on. Okay, I just want to make sure.
All righty.
Probably so. Go ahead, you're fine, go ahead. Yeah.
All right, well, thank you again for your time. I'm going to speak a little bit louder. Is this better?
Good.
All right, excellent. I got my cheerleaders back here that will keep me on track. If I get quiet, give me some motions and I will speak up. So what we're going to talk about today, basically we're going to talk a little bit about Mercer, talk about working with our team and why you would select Mercer, and then we're going to wrap up on the fee proposal. A little bit about Mercer. We are one of the world's largest brokerage and consulting firms for employee benefits and human resources consulting. Our parent company is Marsh & McLennan Company. There are 3 other operating companies within Marsh & McLennan. That's Marsh, Oliver Wyman, as well as Guy Carpenter. Today we're going to focus on Mercer. Within Mercer there are 4 pillar of services available: talent and compensation, health and welfare, retirement, and investments. But today we're going to focus on health and welfare. As I mentioned, Mercer is one of the world's largest employee benefits consulting and brokerage firms. We have nearly $4.5 billion in revenue, approximately 21,000 employees servicing approximately 28,000 clients worldwide, and we touch approximately 110 million lives. While we are large, we do have a local service team available for you. Nashville has been targeted as a growth market, so we have expanded our resources and expanded our team, and we would be delighted to work with you, and Rutherford County would be an important client for us. Over on page 5, just touching on the expertise that we bring to the table. We do have pharmacy professionals, more than 50 on staff. We know that you guys may be evaluating your pharmacy program, and you'll see here in a few moments that we have assigned a pharmacy consultant to assist in this process. We also have over 500 professionals on staff, actuarial and financial. That would be former underwriters, actuaries, as well as financial analysts. From a compliance perspective, we do have over 60 attorneys available. They assist us on a regular basis in understanding legislation. They've been key in understanding all the bits of health reform, but we are in touch with them on a regular basis, and we bring that to the table for you. Finally, we know that you guys have a number of wellness initiatives in place and that you definitely want to expand those. We've got a consultant on the team for you to assist you in identifying those vendors, as well as developing a multi-year strategy. Over on page 6, we'll touch on the team. Up at the top, you'll see the Mercer leadership. Jim McNary is our H&B U.S. business leader. He is out of Atlanta. He has a personal interest in growing the Nashville market because he is a graduate of Vanderbilt University. Out of D.C. is Ellen Kelsey. She is our South H&B business leader. And then here locally, we've got Jay Brown. In his prior position, he did provide services to Rutherford County, but he also brings extensive knowledge of municipalities. For your local team, who we have here today, again, my name's Emily Haley. I'd be your senior account manager, primary contact, supported by Agnes Quiggle, another account manager here. Jim Harrell is the lead consultant, would work with Ryan McCullough on your overall projections, contributions, financials, in conjunction with our actuary that's on the team, Chad Dawkins. Okay. Also on the team, and I've moved on to the specialty team there in the bottom, Megan Newman is with us today. She is the wellness coordinator assigned to your service team. We're excited to have her. And then Debbie Doolittle, she is the pharmacy consultant. She's out of our Atlanta office and was unable to join us today. So now that we've talked a little bit about Mercer and about the service team, we're going to talk a little bit about how we work with our clients. And when we speak with prospects and clients, there's a common theme. Standing still is not an option. And basically, what that means is that what we're hearing is that retaining current state is not an option. A lot of our clients and prospects are feeling pushed, they're feeling the pressure as costs are going up. There's more pressure from the stakeholders as well as the C-suite. There's more interest in integration. We know that you've recently adopted Benefit Focus, to improve your benefits delivery and enrollment process. And of course, HR is pushed to do more in a less amount of time and to do it much faster. So that's typically, that's the standard theme that we're hearing when we speak with clients and prospects. Our goal would be if selected, we would want to schedule a strategy discussion with you so that we could learn more about you, more about your objectives, your guiding principles, learn more about your internal and external environment so that we could talk about actions that you could take to manage your benefits more effectively as well as control costs. And, you know, our goal would be to sit with you, talk in great detail, and develop a multi-year strategy. Now, while our focus is, you know, working with you to develop a multi-year strategy, we would want to make sure that, you know, it is targeted towards managing your programs more effectively, controlling costs, but also meeting the needs of your employees and their dependents. So now I'm going to turn it over to Jim Harrell. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Jim Harrell. I'm a senior consultant with Mercer here in Nashville. My primary responsibility, as Emily pointed out, is assisting on the technical and financial side. My colleagues in the back, Mr. McCullough and Mr. Dawkins, would also be very closely involved there. I also, as I said earlier to a group, have more gray hair than anyone here, which qualifies me to be the senior advisor on the account. But Emily is absolutely the lead. Her second in command will be Agnes Quiggle. Emily mentioned that we do a lot in regard to the financial services side of the programs. We expect to be involved in cost projections, plan design, revision, values, core work in regard to ACA compliance, that sort of thing. But one of the key things that we would be doing is modeling contributions. We understand that this is a very important aspect of any benefit plan. It is with every client we work with. We have extensive experience in dealing with those kinds of issues, as well as a great wealth of benchmarking information to assist us in guiding you in establishing what those contributions are. The background includes setting contributions on the basis of salaries, on the basis of incentives, and we also work very closely with clients in establishing contributions weighted for employees versus dependents, sometimes even going so far as to establish contributions by child. So a lot of moving parts there, but we expect to spend a great deal of time working with you on exactly that strategy. And I'll emphasize what Emily said, and she'll say again, that strategy is the keynote of everything that we do. We haven't made any presumptions about what you need. What we're going to be talking about really are the kinds of things that we expect to be bringing to the table. Next up on page 10, we mentioned earlier that we'll have a number of specialists working on the team with us. The first order of business we expect to be addressing is pharmacy costs. It's one of the most expensive things that we have seen and increasing at a very rapid rate as a result of specialty pharmaceuticals. We expect to deploy our resources out of our Atlanta office to assist us in negotiating the best possible price points for the pharmacy program that you have in place, whether you keep it with Cigna or consider alternative vendors for those services. Second, we expect to address stop-loss coverage. We know you've got stop-loss coverage now with Cigna. We have a number of vendor partners we work with that typically produce savings in the range of 5 to 10% on stop-loss policy contract costs. We also have contracts in place that retain a number of terms which we believe are particularly favorable and which will reduce the risk absorbed by Rutherford County in regard to large claims. Finally, we deal with a number of insurance companies on a very broad basis with significant revenue involved and significant headcount involved. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But those organizations generally are willing to establish with us what we refer to as value service partner relationships. What that value consists of varies by carrier. In some cases, it is a set of services that may not be available to other organizations. In some cases, it may be access to certain services that might not typically be available to clients of a particular size. As it happens, Cigna, Hartford, and Unum are all value service providers with Mercer. And on the following page, we'll talk in some detail about what that means. What you can see on the left-hand side is that Mercer currently advises clients who employ about 1.25 million employees who are covered by the Cigna insurance programs or through self-insured plans. So we're one of the 3 largest organizations that Cigna works with in terms of establishing relationships with clients in regard to their medical plans. On the right-hand side, you'll see that both Hartford and Unum are value service providers. With Hartford, we are the largest single vendor of insurance programs underwritten by the Hartford, and with Unum, we're one of the top 3 vendors. We think this gives us not only particular leverage in the market in regard to pricing, but we absolutely know that as a result of very high relationships in these organizations, we're able to call on very senior members of those teams when our clients run into problems of various sorts. So when the local service team can't resolve the issue, we have the capacity to pick up the phone and move to a very high level in these organizations when our clients need assistance. What we have on the following page is another tool we expect to deploy. This is a network analysis tool. We refer to it as NetPick. What NetPick does is permit a plan sponsor to determine in relative terms which vendor has the best discounts in a particular market for medical care services. We know from past experience that both Cigna and Blue Cross and Blue Shield are very strong players in Tennessee, but what NetPick allows us to do is take the data produced directly by the insurance companies and assess which company in detail is able to produce the best price point. What we find typically is that differences of 2 or 3 or possibly more % are available through a network analysis. And we expect at some point in our relationship to deploy this tool in order to create a due diligence process around the network and the vendor of those services. Finally, we've got something here that we refer to as Mercer Health Advantage. We like to glue our name to lots of things. What Mercer Health Advantage consists of is an expanded version of care and case management that we've established with some of the biggest insurance companies in the country. And by expanded, I mean this. All of the carriers that we deal with, and all the carriers you deal with, Cigna, for example, in your case, but also the Blue Plans, United Healthcare, Aetna, and so on, have care and case management programs embedded in their administrative processes. What we did was examine those processes and concluded that certain aspects of them were probably inadequate and could be improved. And we have a large number of clinical specialists who work with these carriers in developing a more extensive care management program, which has been deployed by these carriers and will typically yield somewhere in the vicinity of 3 to 5% savings overall. And if you think about these as care management, case management on steroids, that's exactly what it is. A much more intensive service process as it relates to the management of care when it's being delivered. And this really addresses the 20% of the people generating the 80% of the claims. I have to mention that there's typically an additional cost associated with this because it does result in improved and additional administration. On the other hand, the carriers have generally agreed to guarantee a return on investment, so it is absolutely cost neutral, and as I said, we expect it to save money over time. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Megan Newman, who is our Health and Wellness and Total Health Management Specialist. Megan?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Megan Newman. I'm a registered dietitian and have a master's in exercise science. And I would be absolutely delighted to be the dedicated resource for Rutherford County. I am based in the Nashville office, and I'm part of the South Market Total Health Management team. On page 14, it actually lists all of the key players that are part of our total health management practice in the South. We are led by Dr. Louise Short. She's based in Atlanta. She has a long career in evidence-based medicine, looking at best practice guidelines related to occupational health and preventive disease. Prior to coming to Mercer, she was also at Healthways, and so very familiar with the Nashville market and many of the customers here. Becky Kajowski and Sally Webster are our clinical resources. One is located in Tampa, one is in Atlanta. Sally would likely be very engaged with this account. She has a lot of expertise in the area related to on-site clinics and pharmacies, and has been very involved with several of your partners. The wellness resources below are also available to support you as you begin to think about what tools you have in place today and also the direction that you want to go. I joined Mercer back in June, having spent about 10 years in the health management space, and for such a large global corporation, I am truly amazed at the accessibility of the team and how quickly everyone responds and shares best practice. It's truly a unique aspect of Mercer that has been a very pleasant surprise and opportunity for me. If you go to page 15, this speaks a little bit in greater detail about the resources that Rutherford County will have available to them. I talked a little bit about the people. So on top of all of the different specialty practices that we do have many thought leaders related to all different types of healthcare in the industry. Everyone is very involved, really focused on client case studies so that we can share best practices so that all of our clients can be successful as a whole. Specific to resources and relationships, I'll start out with Mercer Labs. Mercer Labs is actually a group based out of our San Francisco office. what this group does is that it evaluates all of the vendors coming into the space. And so it looks at very innovative ideas around autism or how to work with patients that were newly diagnosed with cancer that are typically venture-backed companies, but what they do is they go through a very rigorous process to understand what is the true user experience, what is the benefit, what is the outcome, how is the pricing structure set up, and so really a strong job of vetting these vendors for consideration. We also have a value service provider panel where we work with a lot of the partners that you do today. But because of Mercer's size, we're able to have collective purchasing power, which ultimately means that you get a much higher value for those services. The other piece I wanted to mention is the different partnerships, as Jim had discussed with Mercer Health Advantage. Again, what makes that program so unique is that it's run by your carrier, but it is objectively assessed each quarter by your Mercer team. And so there's a lot of diligence going into the running of operations, to look at reporting, and also the care that your employees and their family members are receiving. The last piece I want to touch on is the proprietary measurement tools. And so Jim had talked about NetPicks. We also have access to a lot of tools that can help expedite vendor evaluation processes, and then also using a lot of our benchmarking tools. So we have a very clear understanding of what are successful rates of engagement, what are successful rates of completion. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next page. I wanted to speak a little bit about the HERO Scorecard. The HERO Scorecard is a nationally available tool from the Health Enhancement Research Organization. Mercer has a very unique relationship that no other consulting house does with HERO, and that we partner with them to be able to conduct this very in-depth survey with clients and then deliver a very deep evaluation of what your strengths and opportunities are. It looks at components in 6 different areas, so things like cultural support, measurement, participation strategies, those types of things, where we'll be able to objectively quantify the success of how your organization is doing compared to your peers. There's also a recent article published in the Journal of Occupational Medicine that identified that employers that use tools like HERO often have much better health results, but also actually much better financial results. And this leads to the thought that using HERO helps really put a very deep strategy in place and prepares you to be able to be successful, and really what gets measured is what gets done. Moving on to the last page. This is what we very lovingly call our clamshell, and there's a lot of names on here, but really what this is supposed to speak at is that there are many, many, many vendors coming into the market today. It's a very noisy environment. They're calling directly on employers. And really what this speaks to our clients and saying that we have familiarity with these because of our mass and the information sharing that goes along with your clients. We understand that you have partners in place today that are doing very well. One of the first initiatives, if we were lucky to work with you, would really be able to examine how they're performing for you to ensure that we can get the most out of those relationships. The last thing that we want to do is to come on here and recommend 3 new purchasing vendors when we really want to understand your solution. So these are always options for you to be able to look at to grow your solution based on where your health risk is, and then also based on the interest of your population and what would make them feel that they are being provided with excellent benefits and excellent opportunities and capabilities.
All right, so we've touched on a number of items rather quickly today, collective purchasing, total health management, Mercer Health Advantage, but all of those items we would discuss more in detail during the strategy discussion as we're trying to develop your multi-year strategy. So moving on to page 19, Jim touched on the financial process as far as developing the projections and setting contributions. One thing that we want to note as a resource that we have is the National Employer Sponsored Surveys of Health Plans. That is our survey. It is the largest of its kind, and we can access it to benchmark you against other municipalities. And looking at the survey for 2015, there were nearly 200 respondents that were governmental units. About 24 of them were state respondents, and the remaining were city and county. I want to touch on benefits and open enrollment. We will work with you in preparation for open enrollment as well as assist you throughout the process. We know you work with High Fidelity today on communication, and we will work alongside them to assist in the communications. We know you've selected Benefit Focus for benefits enrollment, and we will assist with that implementation as well as ongoing support. For compliance support, I mentioned earlier, we've got over 60 attorneys available that we have access to assist us in interpreting legislation. They've been key in writing communications for health reform as well as in interpreting and understanding all the various provisions. But we are in touch with those attorneys on a regular basis. We understand that our clients do have complicated problems and we want to help them out. So I hope throughout the presentation today that we have answered the question, why Mercer? Why would you select us? Our focus, our main goal would be to meet with you, develop a multi-year strategy to ensure that we are meeting your needs as far as managing your programs more effectively, controlling your cost, as well as meeting the needs of your employees and their dependents. We've got a tremendous amount of tools, vast amount of resources, and a $4.5 billion company to support us. And I need to just highlight, we do have a highly motivated and experienced team, and we're ready to partner with you. So I'm going to turn it over to Jim to talk about the compensation and fee proposal.
We're doing good on time, huh, Agnes? Good. It always comes down to money, one way or the other. Let's talk about that very briefly. What this slide really is intended to illustrate is that we are absolutely devoted to complete transparency in regard to our work. So whether you choose to pay us via a fee, whether we're paid via commission, whether it's a combination of the two, we'll absolutely guarantee that you'll know exactly how much you're paying us and where the money is coming from. So as many moving parts as there are in the insurance industry, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with these kinds of arrangements, we'll guarantee that you'll know exactly where we're receiving compensation and who's paying us and how much. So we're completely agnostic in regard to how we get the money, but you'll know where it's coming from. The second point I'd like to make is that all of our consultants are salaried. None of us is compensated based on whether or not we make this sale. So there isn't a big check waiting for any of us when we get back to the office if we're lucky enough to be selected. We're committed to provide a high degree of service as a team. A number of us have been working together for 15 years, which means Emily and I have really grown to tolerate each other very effectively. So far. In regard to the fee proposal, let's start at a very high level. The RFP was very comprehensive, so congratulations to Ms. Street. It took us quite some time to respond to it, as a matter of fact. But all the services requested, we have included. And in particular, on the upper side of this page, what we're describing is an arrangement that totals $750,000 over 3 years that is inclusive of a dependent audit, one audit over the course of that 3-year period, plus a $40,000 annual allowance in regard to communications, and covering the fees for the flexible spending account administrative process, as well as all the other support services that were required and requested in the RFP. So as they say about the spaghetti sauce, it's in there. The second half of the proposal really represents what we would charge if we did not engage in the dependent audit. And as Mr. Brown told me earlier, the $750,000 represents a significant discount on the price of that dependent audit, which is actually a pretty costly undertaking because there's a great deal of paper that moves back and forth. The internet's great for a lot of things, but it's not good for that. So that really is the summary statement in regard to the services. And I'll turn it back over to Emily, and we can wrap it up.
All right, so the final slide here is just a draft timeline in the event we were selected. We will work against this timeline to ensure that we're meeting all the goals and deadlines to make sure that this is a successful benefits program. All right, so thank you for your time. We're here for questions.
I want to go to one comment, Mr. Harrell, that you said, just for clarification purposes to the committee members. Back on, let me see if I can find the page here. Because when you were talking about your book of business across the board at Mercer, and specifically you were talking about how you all have preferred relationships with a lot of the vendors that we currently have in place. And I know that was the intention of your comment, and
yes.
I understand that. What I want to clarify for the committee members, though, is that when we have a need to go to market for one of those lines of insurance, that there's not an arrangement in place that would preclude you from doing an objective evaluation as to not only our existing companies that we deal with, but for other competitors as well. So I'll pick on Cigna since Mr. Huffman's here today. So when our medical, dental, vision, and all those components go out, we're not solely focused on Cigna. You'll do a thorough evaluation and look at all the others in the marketplace that could provide the same services and do a cost evaluation for us that is objective, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. I'll elaborate by saying that as Emily pointed out, all of this starts with a strategy discussion. So we would never go to market without discussing with your organization where you wanted to go, what information you wanted to receive, and which vendors you wanted responses from. In terms of being agnostic, we are absolutely agnostic. There are no carriers out there who receive some favored status from us, and in fact, it would be a remarkably rapid way of one of us losing our jobs if any such arrangement were ever put in place.
Other questions from our members out here? All right, Mr. Hall.
I had a couple of questions. That was my first question, was if you have any separate arrangements with any of the vendors that are contracted under different arms of your company. But you're saying that there is no, you understand what I'm saying? The vendors, are you getting a fee or anything from any of the vendors that we'd be looking at, or any type of compensation or any type of anything? What she was just talking about. How are you're saying it's transparent, but that's why I was just curious about how does the other arms of your company that do have those relationships with those other vendors and stuff like that, it's totally separate?
It is totally separate. In fact, we are incredibly diligent about exactly that process, and there is no commingling of funds. So it is absolutely possible, although I don't know. One of our primary operating companies is Oliver Wyman. Oliver Wyman does general management consulting. They may, in fact, have done general management consulting for Cigna at some time in the past, completely irrelevant to our relationship. And in every case, our compensation from Cigna or any other carrier would be completely disclosed to you.
And then do we, under the lawyers, to say if we decided to redo some contracts, something like that, are we billed separately for that, or is that included in the prices? If we needed 10 of them up here to do something big, something, is that included in the price?
That's a great question. If you said you wanted to redraft every document start to finish and edit it 16 times over the course of the next 6 months, then we'd have a conversation about whether there would be an extra charge associated with it. But generally speaking, what we're intending to do is include a very comprehensive set of services.
And then how do we annually, and this may be for Ms. Street, how do we annually evaluate your productivity, how well that you've done each year? How does that done in the industry? I'm not in insurance business, so I don't know. But you may have to, tell me where we can evaluate you at the end and where our employees can evaluate it also.
Sure. So one of the things that you've heard Ms. Haley speak to is a multi-year strategy. So we would go through and we would lay out what the program looks like. So some of the things that have been on my radar that I haven't gotten to yet would certainly be part of that, and they would have the extra boots on the ground to make that happen, right? So we'd want to evaluate based on what does that look like once we pass through that certain milestone on the strategy plan. Did we achieve the objectives? What did we see in returns from a cost savings for implementation? When we go through a bid process, how did we improve our programs, not only in terms of pricing, but what did our employees pick up in terms of services and additional benefits as a result of that? So that would be the ongoing evaluation process. The other thing that we would look at is service to Rutherford County. During their interview process, I'd asked if they had been told by Mr. Brown that we're a high-maintenance, demanding client, to which Mr. Harrell said yes, and he remembered me from a long time ago, so that all worked out, right? I'm not a patient person by nature, and so how quick are you getting back to my emails? How accessible are you? All of that goes into the evaluation process in terms of how they're doing on an annual basis.
One last question. When was the last time, didn't we just do a employee eligibility audit 2 years ago, or when did we do that?
It's been 5.
It's been 5 already?
Mhm.
Wow.
Yep. Dependent eligibility, the full-blown, that was actually when Miss Miller was here, and Sakova was the company that came in, and you all elected to do that. We wrapped that up in 2010 was when that happened, because that was happening right when I came to the county. Now, we do it ongoing internally, but I think you're talking about the big one. Yeah.
Other questions? I'm sure there are questions there, but we just haven't been able quite to formulate them. Ms. Hickerson, are you ready for a question or two?
Just mainly from Ms. Street, and then to follow up with them. What is our time frame, help me remember, of getting someone in place?
So the contract effective date would be March the 1st.
Okay. With that being said, is March 1st a problem with y'all? I mean, that's a month and 2 or 3 days. I know we have a Nashville office now set up, and several folks are in Atlanta, but knowing what goes around, and we're bidding something every 3 years, and I think we've got a couple of little things in the back of Ms. Street's mind of what we're fixing to go to. Is March 1st going to be a problem? And along that line, I'm a person that if we've got questions and stuff, is there going to be somebody at these insurance meetings that we can turn around and say, hello, you got me an answer?
No and yes. I think that's how that goes. We understood from the RFP and talking to Ms. Street that the March 1st date was absolutely hit the ground running. One of the reasons this team has been assembled is because we have available capacity. I mean, Ms. Haley is handling about a half dozen of accounts right now. So we do have capacity on the team, and we are all very familiar with working with each other. So even though the Nashville office is expanding, the newbie here is Mr. McCullough, and he happens to have 3 years of underwriting experience with Cigna. So he's ready to hit the ground running as well. And yes, in regard to the insurance meetings, we would expect to have representation there, and we certainly are ready, willing, and able to answer questions. So absolutely.
One of the things too, Ms. Hickerson, because we are in tight time frames, we've got a couple of small bids we need to get out, which I'll get approval from you all next time to send those out, is I had put in place that whoever advances after today within a 30-day period owes me a timeline on how they're going to transition our account and start takeover. And I did that intentionally to get in front of that date. And so there would be conversations prior to 3/1 with whoever was selected today.
And if I can add a couple of other points. I mean, the advantage of having an organization like ours, I think, is that, for example, if you said we'd like to market the stop-loss coverage, while all of us are very familiar with marketing stop-loss coverage, we actually have a squad of people who do nothing but that. So we would work with them, we'd put together the data, we'd hand it off to them, they would run with that ball. We perform the final analysis and present, discuss, and create strategic direction, but we are not charged with the nuts and bolts of actually obtaining a quote. So the more mechanical stuff, we've gotten to the point where we're running through that very quickly, and it's typically not burdening people like our local actuary, Mr. Dawkins, for example.
Okay, Mrs. Harvey.
Hey, just a quick question. On your services, if Ms. Street needed to contact you, do you have a website so she's able to access information directly from you? Or how is information passed from your company to Ms. Street?
That's a multifaceted question. We have all the customary means of communication, so email, voicemail, et cetera. So ask.
Okay, so I was just looking on the printout, different services that you have, and under wellness, it says online resources via client portal, and the answer was no. So is that going to hinder us in any way, Ms. Street, about getting access to anything we might need?
So what she's asking about, the answer is no. Even today in working with Cowan Benefits, I would talk to Ms. Lee all the time. I would expect either of the options that we proceed with today to be the same. I would expect that by the end of March, it wouldn't require myself nor my day-to-day contact at that broker to even introduce ourselves when we call, because we'll know each other's voice well enough by that point. And that will be one of the things that they're judged on, their performance is judged on. So it may be just through a different delivery system on that one component, but there is a client portal that you can access compliance information, ACA information, all of those things. That's typically routine stuff for any broker of this size that you're dealing with.
All right. Yes, sir, Mr. Bowles.
What percentage of your new customers go with the exclusion of the audit? Which of your new customers exclude the audit?
That's interesting. I've never thought about it in those terms. I think it would be fair to say that every client that we have has considered it. Some have gone the we're going to audit approach and not actually audited, and then begun an ongoing check. So they pick a point in time and say, from here on out, we're going to audit. Some of them do random sample audits, and some of them go the whole 9 yards. I would say that and I think Ms. Street was alluding to this, the full 9 yards is very elaborate, very time-consuming, and relatively disruptive. I mean, you're asking people for things like birth certificates and marriage certificates and so on, and about spouse employment. So I think it's a serious undertaking. I can't really give you a percentage. It's certainly less than half, and in any given year, it may be less than 10 or 15%.
Thank you.
Marlon.
Yeah, I kind of had some of the same questions about the audit. And Ms. Street, you may directed more at you than anybody maybe. Did we see a good benefit from the audit 5 years ago, worth the money?
We did. The audit more than paid for itself. When we removed ineligible dependents, spouses off the insurance, I believe, don't hold me to this number, but I want to say it was around $360,000 that we saw in savings.
Would you recommend yearly? Once every?
Yeah, typical dependent audits are done every 3 to 5 years. Now, we do them ongoing. So as an example, someone who adds a new dependent, either due to a life change event or through open enrollment, we go ahead and verify that now. It is still beneficial to do the full-blown audit every 3 to 5 years because you do discover things through those. It's certainly something that's on our radar, given the fact that we just did a spousal eligibility change this year. Whether we would do it this year, next year, or the following is yet to be determined, but it's certainly something that we would want to evaluate and look at doing. I know that we will pick up some efficiency in the process through benefit focus by having a what they call a knockout question on the front end that basically says, does your spouse work and do they have insurance offered? If they click yes, then spousal option is not even made available to them beyond that point.
And would the audit be 2017?
If we did do it, it would be in 2017 prior to the open enrollment period, yes.
And then what about a random audit? I mean, would that be one third every year? Is there any benefit to that? Or?
I would suspect that based on the offering that they have on the table, that we would request that they provide us with the full audit. And then if we wanted to do a random audit, we would manage that internally because there would be another cost associated with that, I presume.
I was just thinking if everybody knew it was coming 2017, random may be better. But
yeah, you would be surprised though. Sometimes people just forget to remove, they forget what the rules are, and so they forget to remove, and that's really who we're identifying.
I was just curious too about over the last 5 or 10 years, how much time have you spent on all the new Gatsby trying to get everybody's language with the attorneys is what I just keep thinking about. If we go back and having to change the accounting, get our numbers down, our big number out to get that number down. Have y'all done a lot of that in the last few years?
So he's asking specifically about our about your actuarial services. You've referenced support there, and so how would you support us in terms of doing actuarial evaluations? You know, we've got one finance person here who loves words like IBNR and all that stuff, so maybe you could speak to those components.
Yeah, that's once again a multifaceted question. You're a tough crowd. So what I would describe as core actuarial services, or actuary, cost projections, reserve valuations, plan design modifications, all of the nuts and bolts of managing today's costs and projecting future costs. When you start talking about GASB, in particular, if what we're discussing is the retirees, that is not part of the RFP response. So that becomes a much more complicated process. Mr. Dawkins is intimately familiar with it, but it is a different scope entirely, precisely because it's a much more involved calculation. So nuts and bolts on day-to-day, absolutely in comprehensive service. And a lot of that, and I'm sure Ms. Street would attest, it depends on facts and circumstances. So if organizationally you're interested in turning over every rock and checking all the possible outcomes, we may do multiple iterations of a cost projection or plan design modification or contribution strategies, and that would absolutely be included.
Okay, good questions, good discussion. More questions from anyone? All right, well, just one more then.
I was just curious, who do y'all have the Shelby County account? Is that your team here? Y'all have the Shelby? I was just curious, how many teachers are there? How big is that account?
It is not our team here. We do work with Shelby County, though. And I could find out the answer, but I don't know off the top of my head. Yeah.
So that's managed out of your Memphis office, is that correct?
Actually, the lead consultant is out of our Atlanta office.
Oh, okay.
And do you know anything else about that? Yeah. Okay, and have you worked on it? Yes, our actuaries worked on it.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, then, well, thank you very much, representatives from Mercer, for your presentation, and we do appreciate that and say thank you. And we'll continue this discussion and see where this goes. Thank you.
So next up today for the group is Mr. Heath Holt from Willis, and he'll be providing a presentation. Did you have any handouts, or they already been? Oh, I couldn't see. Miss Anderson was already doing that. Okay, so whenever you're ready, Mr. Holt, the floor is all yours.
Fabulous. Well, thank you all. I appreciate your time this afternoon. I know it's not the most exciting topic at times in the evening is talking about insurance, but we'll jump right in. My name is Heath Holt with Willis here in Nashville. You may have heard us as Caroon and Black years ago, or Willis Caroon. It is now just Willis. And in addition, you may have heard of our recent merger with Towers Watson, one of the leading global benefits firms. So you will see, and I hope to demonstrate this afternoon, just some of the bench strength that we have, so to speak. What I have brought today is a handout that you'll see. This is intended to be a 30,000 foot. And I would prefer more of a discussion based on your questions. I think that's probably more beneficial to you all as we walk through this. Second is, with only being allotted 30 minutes, which I completely respect, and doing these for many years, I did not want to shuffle a full team in front of you. I think sometimes that can get a little distracting. So I wanted to be able to hopefully field any questions that you might have as we do this. And lastly, before we jump in, I will tell you that as part of our team here in Willis, I have been there for 12 years working on the consultant side. Prior to that, I worked for Cigna Healthcare as a middle market underwriter. And then I also worked on the pharmacy benefit management side as an underwriter. And then prior to that was CNA. So I've been doing this 18 years and at Willis for the last 12. And I think you will find that same level of experience, if not more, with the rest of the team. So as we jump in, if you will look at the first page, it's labeled page 2 on the inside cover, you will see what I would tell you is the greatest differentiator between Willis and those in the consulting market. We call them our areas of expertise. Sometimes internally you'll hear us say subject matter experts. As we walk through this and we talk all inclusive, this is what we're discussing. Because we know that benefits come around one time of year from a marketing standpoint, but there are also 11 other months in the year that many things are happening. And so no longer are the days of simply marketing your plan, trying to find the best rate, enrolling people and moving on. Because before we know it, here we sit again in January and February, and ACA, 1094 reporting, eligibility audits, lag reports, and all these things keep rearing their ugly heads. So what we've done is we established a team over 10 years ago to truly bring the brightest in talent together to give you the most comprehensive set of services. And you'll see here, starting from the left, we call it health cost management. That's the analytics team. Rutherford County would have a dedicated analytics team led by an individual who spent 17 years at Cigna Healthcare as an underwriter on both middle market and what we call national accounts, and also on the pharmacy benefit management side. In addition, you would have what we call an account executive. That would be an individual with over 10 years experience in the group medical arena. You would have a day-to-day client manager and an assistant client manager. So you have a pretty robust team. With that, you would have a daily contact, and that contact would be available every day via email or phone, landline or cell phone these days, at a moment's notice to help you out, because we know that some of these situations don't really stop during normal hours. You have those 5 o'clock pharmacy issues that seem to arise on Fridays, and we need to make sure that we're available for those. The analytics team would be in charge of providing you monthly lag reports, IBNR reports on a monthly basis. That's extremely important. In addition, quarterly dashboard reports. And then walking through what we call the 180-day strategy, which is plan designs, contribution strategies, full-blown marketing efforts as we move toward that effective date of January 1. You'll see also that we have productivity, which is our health and wellness side. Willis has a team of dedicated wellness professionals led by Dr. Ron Leopold, an MD, who heads the team up. They serve a multifaceted approach. We have determined that over the last several years that in order to effectively impact the claims cost for your plan, we have to do 2 things. We have to, 1, identify what's driving the claims. Okay? It's more important than just simply doing a blanketed wellness approach. We have to scrutinize the data to find out what is truly driving the claims. It could be stress related. It could be catastrophic illness. It could be any number of things, but if we're not targeting the specific things, then we're really not targeting the claims cost, because ultimately we want to create a healthy culture, and we want to lower the overall cost of the plan. I think that's key and critical. That team will work through that. We do that through a series of methods. 1 is regular meetings. 2 is what we call a health and wellness gap assessment, and that would involve bringing a team together to review a series of questions and then comparing your answers to national benchmark studies. We can look at it from an aggregate perspective and then also from a regional perspective, because that also, when you're talking Southeast, does make a big difference when we're looking at wellness initiatives. And then the third part of that is tying into what we call Willis Med. We drill down to the ICD level number to determine exactly what's going on with your plan design. We correlate that with a wellness report. At that point, our analytics and our wellness team come together to help you create a brand, if you need, to help you create a wellness team, and then most importantly, help you implement that. Through our carrier partners and through the Willis team, we've been extremely successful. Next, we talk about the human resources. And we'll touch on those a little more, but what I will tell you is Willis has a team of human resource professionals from some of the largest companies in the country who now work within the Willis world. Every person that I mentioned today, from actuarial to legal to human resource, are all W-2 employees of Willis. That's extremely important. Unlike many of the people that we see in the marketplace that do what we do, I will tell you we are not reaching out to third parties. And some people say, well, what does that matter? I will tell you what it matters is the liability falls on us, okay? Because if someone is a third party handling items of Rutherford County and something goes south and they close their doors and leave, we're all left empty-handed. So when I mentioned to you the team of attorneys we have, when I mentioned to you the total compensation analyst and the human resource team that we have, they are all W-2 employees, accessible to everyone within Rutherford County for situations or projects that might arise. And so with a human resource team, we would perform what's called a human resource gap assessment. While I am absolutely certain that all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted, what we would do coming out of the gate is to sit down with our human resource professional and walk through every nut and bolt of the team here in Rutherford County. We are absolutely a partner in this effort. And that would mean scrutinizing every plan document. That would mean scrutinizing the handbooks that are out and about in the marketplace. That would mean scrutinizing the plan designs to make sure that everything is compliant, all the way through the Affordable Care Act and healthcare reform. If something was deemed to be out of compliance, our team is there to right that ship. If we find that maybe the language in your employee handbook is out of date, our human resource team will work with our legal team to correct all of that and provide it back to you in what we call red line format to give you the ability to make sure that language is indeed up to date. If we find that plan documents, as we know the law has changed in the last 2 to 3 years drastically with who's allowed benefits, who's not allowed benefits, what's available. So we will make sure that Rutherford County is compliant by letter of the law, and our team will take that on for you, the Willis team, and provide you the most up-to-date forms available for you. That is something as part of our comprehensive package. That also would fall in the next, the legal and compliance. Not only do we do monthly webinars, we hold local seminars. We help, as I mentioned, rewrite the 5500s. We work on the 5500s and file those, rewrite the handbooks, the plan documents. And we could get way in the weeds today of RAPR documents and all these things, but it's important to provide an all-encompassing approach. With Towers Watson as now our partner, and we are one company, we are now the largest employee benefits consulting firm in the country. And so we have to make sure that at the end of the day, you all are operating in not only the most efficient manner and effective manner, but the most compliant manner. Because I will tell you that in the world of ACA, there are more DOL audits going on across the country than we've seen in the last 15 years. And our job is to be a front line of defense for you as the county, and that's what we do. And then last but not least, communications. I cannot overemphasize the importance of an effective communication plan. Willis has a full communications team on staff for Rutherford County. Through many studies and many years of research, we have determined that benefits need to be written on a 6th grade level to satisfy the average employee. We've also realized that people spend more time shopping for a TV before Christmas than they do shopping for their benefit plans. And they will drive to 4 different electronic stores to get the right price, but yet ignore, at times, the plans in front of them because of the complexity of health insurance. And it's understandable. It's difficult. And so our team will put together a multifaceted approach of delivering that message to your employees. And that would be through print media. That would be through agreeing, which we have, to satisfy the fulfillment of the open enrollment packets to be distributed to all the employees. That would be through custom websites that we can create for Rutherford County, recorded PowerPoint presentations for the spouses who might not have the ability to show up to a meeting and maybe over the weekend want to see the same presentation that the employee received. And that's critical. That's absolutely critical. That would also mean sitting down with the employees and walking through situations that might arise in the upcoming year and truly explaining to them how the plan would impact their overall cost. Because many employees just don't understand and that's okay. And when we look at the holistic approach, which is looking at the premiums and the actual cost of the plan and how that plan applies to an upcoming childbirth or a surgery or something like that, it is an invaluable service, and they need that. So when you look at that, if you do want to look at page 3, and I will not bore you and go page by page, but I want to hit some of the highlights before we do the questions, is you will see that it is extremely important for us to develop a 3 to 5 year strategic plan. Why? I feel like we can see significant savings through year 1, which we'll discuss momentarily. In this day and age of benefits, it is absolutely critical that we establish a multi-year plan. This is a partnership. And you've got to take your time as you look forward and create plan designs that not only meet the needs of the employees, but also satisfy that financial adjustment down the road. When you're looking at medical trend running in 9 to 11% annually, assuming nothing's done, you're looking at 9 to 11% increases annually. How do you stop that? And we will talk about that. Compliance, I mentioned. Customer service and focus is critical, because I can tout all of these great things we do and all these bells and whistles, and I can assure you we do them. But if we're not answering the phone when you call, if we're not responding to an email when you need us, if you have an employee who is stuck at the pharmacy at 5 o'clock on a Friday and you don't hear from us till Tuesday, then all the other things that I've mentioned are a moot point. Doesn't matter. It is critical that we hone in on that day-to-day customer service. That is the absolute key element to this. You will find that we have one of the lowest turnover rates in the state from a consulting firm. Our team has grown. We have several employees on our team who have been here in excess of 15 years. We have 2 in excess of 25 years. We've been in business over 100 years in Nashville. We are now the largest employee benefit consulting firm in the state of Tennessee, bar none. Out of those that you've discussed with, we are the largest consultant with Cigna Healthcare. We are extremely agnostic with the carriers we work with. However, we've developed those long-term relationships. So if you don't mind, I want to talk about a couple things that I think are important. One is, how do we achieve these savings? Where do we get these savings? If you march 10 consultants in here, they're going to say, well, we can provide savings for you. Everybody's going to tell you that. No one's going to say, well, it's going to cost more with us. I think you have to look at it from a strategic approach. There's a couple of things in here that help with that. One is, we have great leverage in the marketplace. I mean, just the laws of business. The larger business model you have, the greater leverage you have. And that holds true in this industry as well. 2 is, our analytics team is phenomenal. When we break apart the Rutherford County plan, I would charge to you that we can find savings without making any plan design changes, simply by scrutinizing the terms and agreements that are currently in place. We would begin, and it's come up in several of the meetings, so you may have heard this before, but we would begin by a PBM audit. That is critical. It's absolutely critical when you talk about self-funded plans the size of Rutherford County. Okay? The larger you get, the greater volume of dollars that you're spending, the more opportunity for savings. That would begin by scrutinizing things that, quite frankly, are really in the weeds for today. But I'll tell you, that would looking at the wholesale price, the discounts associated with those. Do you have best-in-class discounts? You should. You may hear the term dispensing fees at times. Are yours in line with where they need to be based on a group of your size? Rebates from the pharmacy side. Are you generating enough for a group of your size? And I will tell you that inevitably, that coupled with the contract language itself will yield results. In addition, are you getting the most bang for your buck with the plans that you have in place? Is your contribution strategy modeled to effectively provide affordable health care and at the same time create additional savings for the plan? So there are many things that we can do as we dive deep into this to determine, have we really made this the most cost-effective plan available? Because our goal ultimately is to provide you with the most cost-effective benefits and minimize disruption. Because the last thing you want is a PR nightmare on your hands when we roll out an enrollment meeting in the fall and everyone says, what's happened to my insurance? Well, sure, you saved money. You cut my insurance. Well, Our team of analytics and communication specialists will work to ensure that we absolutely minimize any disruption but achieve the greatest amount of savings. The last thing on analytics I will say is that does not start in June, that does not start in July, nor does it start in October. That would start today. That starts today by looking at a rolling 12 months of claims. That starts today by providing a lag report on a monthly basis. That starts today by scrutinizing the terms and conditions. We underwrite Rutherford County on a monthly basis. I always tell people I can't guarantee that claims won't go through the roof, but I can guarantee you'll know where they're going to be well in advance of most others because we're looking at them. We have to be involved. We have to be a part of the team. We have to be looking at those claims because that allows us to plan. The quicker we plan, the more effectively we can implement changes should they have to be made. The quicker we do that, the more satisfied the employee base is. The more satisfied they are, the happier you all are. So it is a trickle-down effect. So as we move forward, we will work with three things on the analytics. We're going to work on the IBNRs and dashboards. We're going to work on something called the Willis Med, which is going to drill down to the actual itemized code, the billing code of everything that's being utilized. And third, we're going to work on the strategy approach, the 6-month strategy to look at the contributions, look at the effectiveness of the plan and the unit cost of the plan. So if you would, please turn to page 6 and 7, and you will see what we call the wellness consulting. Willis does a couple of things that I think are unique. One is we only work with A-rated vendors, okay, financially stable A-rated vendors. That's important, and a lot might be thinking, well, surely, you know, that's obvious, and I would say, well, not so fast on that. We do scrutinize these carriers, the Cignas of the world, the Blue Crosses of the world, anyone else you can think of, and that would go down to the wellness vendors we might associate with, stop-loss pharmacy, to make sure they're financially stable to handle clients such as Rutherford County, to be able to have a fiduciary responsibility to pay claims, to work with them. Part of that is related to the surveys that we send out on an annual basis. We do that on what we call the group medical side and the PBM side, but we also do it on the wellness side. We've invested quite a lot in the last 5 years in wellness. We hold an annual wellness forum around the country for our clients, hosted by Dr. Leopold and our wellness associates. We create what we call the Willis Health and Productivity Survey. It's a survey of all of our clients across the country, and we rank everything that is occurring, from what we call wellness on a shoestring budget to the most Cadillac of plans relating to wellness. We track this with medical trends and our licensed actuarial team, who will perform licensed actuarial support throughout the year. We truly get into the claim-by-claim basis to identify where Rutherford County is and how can we best utilize the most appropriate wellness to create lower claim costs. You will see here that we have several partnerships, one of those being the CDC. We do what we call healthy audits, which is our gap assessment, and the health and productivity survey. And so the team at Rutherford County with whom we would be working will have access to all of these many things. And you might say, well, this is a lot of stuff. How do we get this? Most of it's obtained through the day-to-day person, okay? The last thing we want to do is provide you with an onslaught of services and tell you, good luck, go find these. That's not very beneficial to you as a team. Your day-to-day client manager will quarterback the entire process. That person will respond to any email or phone call before noon, same day. Cell phones are available, and we take advantage of the technological world in which we live. And we would like to tell you that we are available every day when you call us. It's what we do. So when you need something, you call them, we coordinate it. If you need a conference call with an attorney, we make that happen. If you need the wellness person on site, we make that happen. In addition, we have a great portal of online resources. We would provide the county with what we call the BLR. And the BLR is a phenomenal online tool that allows you to look at any law across the state regarding health and welfare plans, training material, compensation data, a whole host of newsletters that would be wonderful for the employees of Rutherford County. We have access to compliance manuals, all of our wellness reports online. In addition, Willis has the capability of creating an intranet site for Rutherford County that would look and everything else as though this is your site. Our name is not put anywhere on this. This is completely branded for the Rutherford County. On that site, when the team goes on that site or if an employee goes on that site, they have access to any newsletter they might want. They have access to any report that you might want to put out there. And the Willis team coordinates all of that for Rutherford County. We also find that's a great place to put a link to the open enrollment message. So as we're going through the open enrollment meetings, we create what we call a brain shark, which is a PowerPoint presentation recorded by one of the Willis team members or one of the Rutherford County staff. And we put the link on the Willis site that we've created for you all. We can link that to your current internet site, however you want to do that. We work with you from a technological side on that and make that available to not only the staff but all the employees. And while we're on that topic, I will tell you, it's our understanding that Rutherford County is going through an implementation of Benefit Focus. We have extreme knowledge with the Benefit Focus platform, as well as many others. Our role in that is critical. We've done this for many years. We take part in the conference calls. We work on establishing the electronic data interface, what we call the EDI file feeds. We work with troubleshooting. If there's a problem with Benefit Focus, our team can jump in and help resolve that through the context that we have within Benefit Focus. Because the last thing you need is an enrollment system that is not implemented effectively as we are going into October and you're enrolling the employees. So the last couple of things, and then we'll conclude. We've mentioned communication. As we discussed, Willis has agreed to provide the communication material as part of the proposed fee that we put forth in the RFP. That would include creating the benefit booklet, all required notices, the fulfillment of that, and mailing those out to the employees. In addition to that, that would include the website discussed. That would include the presentation, the audio presentation. Obviously, that would include on-site meetings and working with the employees. And sometimes that gets overlooked, but I will stress once again that one of the most important factors of your plan design is communicating it to the employees. If it is not understood, then it is not utilized effectively, and if it is not utilized effectively, you will not achieve the savings or the satisfaction that we've discussed today. Last, before we get into questions, I will tell you we have proposed what I will tell you is an all-inclusive fee. You will see that we have put forth $195,000 as an annual fee, resulting in $585,000 over 3 years. The one item, in full disclosure, that is not on there is the dependent audit. And that doesn't concern me. We have a variety of avenues in which to achieve a dependent audit. We do many, many of those, and I think they're extremely important. But what I will tell you is everything that we've mentioned today is an all-inclusive $195,000 compensation arrangement. Does not matter, and everyone who submitted an RFP would probably say the same thing. It is not a concern of ours of how we get paid. It does not matter. We do that through commissions. We do that through flat fees. We do it through employees subsidizing that through the cost of their insurance. That's fine with us. We feel when looking at Rutherford County and looking at the needs of the group that is an extremely fair and equitable fee arrangement. I think there are two ways to go on that. You will see a lot of times very high fee amounts. Unfortunately, those relationships typically don't last for the long term. We have been in business for a long time, and that's by establishing long-term relationships. Everyone will be compensated the amount they're deserved, and we feel that this will allow us to not only adequately, but to exceed any expectations currently in place. Another reason we're able to offer this fee, and I think this is extremely important, Willis is the only consulting firm, and that is an absolute term, and I will stand by this, that does not operate in a siloed mechanism. We do not compete with our other offices around the country. We do not compete internally and charging back dollars to the resources that we have. If I need to bring in someone from my office in San Francisco or my office in Knoxville, that's a phone call away. We are one company. A lot of times you'll hear say we're one flag, and that's true. We are the only ones who can say that, and I say that with confidence because that's so important to us. That allows us to tap into resources across the country. Every resource that I utilize, from an actuary to an attorney to a communication specialist to a wellness consultant, are all Willis associates. We are not reaching out to a third party. I do not have to worry about being charged an additional fee for services utilized. So I can tell you with confidence that the $195,000 proposed fee annually for 3 years is an absolute. And that will allow us to do what I think we do so well. And we would love the opportunity to show that to you. And then finally, we are one of the only firms who conducts themselves with something known as the Willis Excellence Model. The Willis Excellence Model is a full disclosure transparency document that the Rutherford County team is provided to ensure that every dollar we receive is reflected 100% on any Schedule A's or 5500s that are reported. On day one of working with Willis, every carrier that we approach, you will receive the full proposal and the amount of commissions listed in that. You will see that we are excluding bonuses and contingents are not part of this. We will not receive those. The only...
You may want to explain what that means, Mr. Holt.
A contingent income or a bonus income is a volume-based income paid to a broker, or it could be in any industry, for the amount of business that you place with a particular carrier. The more you place, the more you get in return, which can sometimes lead to, let's just say, a less than agnostic approach of who you might place business with. The $195,000 is the only compensation we would receive for Rutherford County. That's extremely important to note. So when we look at that, the team would be provided with what we call the Willis Excellence Model, which would be a listing of all the carriers, and it would be a listing of all the compensation amounts that would be included or proposed. And we can structure that so that that does indeed cap out at $195,000 and not a dollar more. We'll make sure that happens as we do that. And, you know, you will hear this. I will just tell you that when we talk about carriers, we've had a great long-standing relationship with Cigna. We've worked very well together. We know many of the Cigna employees. We have a great relationship with all the carriers. We work well with all of them. So whether it's the pharmacy benefit management side, whether it's the stop-loss side, Willis has utilized its leverage in the marketplace to create some of the largest discounts and some of the best rates you will find, and we do that from a standpoint of everyone is treated individually. We have no alliances. And you can be assured that we will work in your best interest for Rutherford County. So I know it's been a long afternoon. I know you guys have been here a while. I completely respect that. So that being said, I do appreciate this, and I would love to entertain any questions you might have.
Questions for Mr. Holt? I have confirmed that he is the client advocate that's going to be, we're going to all have his cell phone number.
That's right.
And he's available 24/7.
Call me right now. There you go.
All right.
Yeah, anytime.
He is the main man.
That's right.
All right, Mr. Hall.
I just had one question. You went through a lot of the stuff that I had questions about. I was just thinking about, and this may be for Ms. Street too, is our OJI program that we use instead of workers' comp, stuff like that, is the consulting stuff, would it go into that at all or not?
It's a separate broker relationship. CCMSI is our current broker on that,
Okay.
that particular coverage.
I just thought of that at the end of the other guys leaving. I thought about that.
That's good.
Other questions? Ms. Hickerson is ready for one, I believe.
Uh-oh.
Okay, just to make it a fair question, I asked the other folks too. You are our go-to guy, correct? Okay. With that being said, we have these lovely monthly insurance meetings.
Yes.
Will you be available? If you're not, will somebody be here to represent in case we have a question? Because I can come up with some pretty good questions. And where you can answer them. And then our effective date is March 1st. Are you in a position that you yourself can hit the ground running?
Yep.
Because we have things in the back of our mind that Ms. Street's going to get on to, and I want to make sure that March 1st is not, we're not going to go ahead and start having troubles on March 1st because you're tending to somebody else.
That's right. No, it's a fair question, and I can guarantee you Ms. Street's going to be jumping in this on March 1. I've no doubt about that. I will tell you we wouldn't be here today if we couldn't. I think it's an extremely fair question. We've had plenty of time to walk through this process. Willis continues to grow. We continue to staff appropriately. And I'll also say this, that what I have learned in roughly 18 years is that I've become less quick to just to parade a team in front of you, because I don't think that's fair to you, okay? Everyone's different. I can't make the assumption that the team I put together without getting to know you is going to be the right fit. And I think that's forcing a team on you. This process has been phenomenal. I have slowly integrated a couple of people. I brought someone to one of the other meetings. But it is most important to sit down with the team, bring who I think might be key individuals, and we create a team for Rutherford County instead of putting a team on you. And then in addition, absolutely, we'd be ready on March 1 to hit the ground running. Thank you.
Okay, I have another question. So just mainly to put it out there so it's said again, you, Willis, you don't have any problem with bringing anybody, because we bid our health and our life and our everybody every 3 years. You're not just going to stick Cigna on us or Blue Cross on us or Aetna on it. You've got a relationship with several companies.
Yep.
Yeah. Go-to favorite.
That's right, and I don't want to just say yes, and I don't want to stand up here and talk to you for 30 minutes and bore you, but I think this deserves this. That's absolutely critical. And so, in addition to Cigna, I mean, you guys are self-funded and you're larger and all these things, so really you are limited to a handful of carriers. But Cigna, Aetna, United Healthcare, Blue Cross, all of those entities would be part of the marketing process. In addition, on the pharmacy side, we would look at all the pharmacy vendors. We would do the same for dental, vision, life, disability, the whole 9 yards. It's a very comprehensive, exhaustive process, but I do appreciate you bringing that to the floor.
To repeat one of the questions that was asked to the others, GASB evaluation, how can you all help from an actuarial perspective on that?
Well, I will tell you, I'll address that head on and say that our actuarial support currently with Willis, now in conjunction with Towers Watson, can absolutely support you on that. Now, where I will say this, and you'll probably hear this from anybody else you ask this of, is it would be important to sit down and see the level of detail and reporting that you might be looking for. But I will tell you, full actuarial support is part of our bid, and that would be signed off on when we go back to the lag reports, some of the studies for unit cost comparison and things like that. We would just have to see the level of that.
Let me give you an example, and maybe that will clarify. So if we're going to make a change to our current retiree program, will you be able to give me an actuarial report on that and what the long-term impact of that change would be?
Yeah, we absolutely have the capability of doing that.
And can you just talk a little bit more? I know you talked about your legal services. That was one of the questions that came up last time. Can you talk, you mentioned something about a meeting that we could schedule. Could you just talk about that accessibility and what that looks like?
Yeah, that's great. We've got our team of attorneys. We do what's called an ERISA gap assessment. And we would sit down with the county. Our attorney, one of them, and we have many, but one of them would come on site. We would walk through a series of questions. And I say a series, it's actually a pretty lengthy report. And that team would be in charge of walking through the compliance metrics of the county. So that would go through everything from, is the language in your plan document up to speed, to your from plan documents to the employee handbooks, to the 5500 reporting, all of those things. And then the legal team would take that aside, and they would work to make sure they would correct any inefficiencies in the process. In addition, the attorneys are available. We do like to run that through the client management team because it gets overwhelming if every client we have is calling our attorneys, I will tell you. But working through the client management team to contact the attorneys, they are available for any questions that come up. It does not have to be just related to your health and welfare plan. So if you have an issue that might arise within the county or maybe the school, we address all of those. So that team of attorneys is absolutely available to the team. That's right. That's part of the fee. That's great.
Mr. Marlin and then Ms. Allen.
Okay, I just, looking at the spreadsheet, would we be your biggest client as far as, yeah?
No, you are actually right in our wheelhouse. So I would say that Willis, our wheelhouse runs from about 800 to 1,000 employees up to about 20,000 employees. We have, we have 3 clients in Nashville that exceed 10,000 employees that we work with. But this is right in there with what we do from an actuarial standpoint.
Are there some examples of counties or municipalities?
We do, and I will tell you, most of the counties, municipalities that we work with, we've worked with several in the state over the years. Most of them now are outside the state. We have a great familiarity with that. School systems in varying states and local city government. So we're familiar with the employee base, but I would even say more importantly, we're familiar with the size, because the size, and when we're talking 4, 5, 6, 7,000 employees, that's where the experience in that wheelhouse allows you to create those unique plan designs and the savings and things like that. It's a good question.
And then the last thing, the dependent and spousal verification is not part of the fee-based right now, though, right?
That is correct. Yeah, it's not, and we do have an internal team that does that, okay? And I would love to sit here and say today it's going to be X dollars. I will tell you, subjectively, it is an extremely aggressive rate. We have 2 ways in which we can do that. We can do it for a flat fee, or sometimes they'll do a percentage of savings. That split can be negotiated. So if we find, $300,000 in savings, we split, and you guys see that. So there's ways to do that, and we are extremely creative. And I will tell you, it needs to be done every 3 to 4 years. It's important.
Hey, Ms. Allen?
One of my questions was the dependent audit as well, but the other one is, across the spreadsheet that they've given us, 3 of the carriers or 3 of the vendors are very similar in price, and yours is a lot lower. And so my question to you is, I'm always nervous about going with the cheapest guy. So I just want to know, what is it we're not asking? What is it we're not seeing? What is it that's allowing you to offer what you feel like is an equal level of service for a far lower price?
Well, I'll tell you, and I'll be extremely candid with you on this, is when we look at price, what consultants like to do in the marketplace that we just don't do, is they put their price against what you're currently paying, okay? Biggest fallacy in this industry. We look at what someone's paying and we think, oh, that's the value. Unless you've been overpaying. So all of a sudden now we've set a benchmark. And we've said, well, this is what they're paying, so you know what we're going to do? We're going to come in below that. We can't go in higher than that. We're going to come in below that. And so everyone else does the same thing. We price it where it should be priced. Huge difference. If you had been paying $200,000 for the last 5 years, I still would have come in at $195, but you would have had a lot come in at $150. It's amazing what they can do when the person currently in place is charging X. So there is nothing. We are larger than any of the firms that you looked at. We've grown at a faster rate than any of the firms that you've looked at. We continue to outpace the firms that you've looked at. And the reason we're doing that is because we've learned that it's about creating those long-term relationships. Our turnover is extremely low with our clients, not just our employees, but our clients. Because we understand that, look, in the end, we will get what we're supposed to get. We feel this is fair in the long-term relationship. We think it's a great investment in the county. We think that it is a great investment in the employee base here. We think we have a lot to bring, but also we're not a regional broker. I think our leverage and our volume buying, so to speak, allows us to offer that. I think it's a very fair question, and I absolutely respect that, but I just think where the price is, I think that's an extremely fair, I think it's just a fair, but I think it's the right price. Yeah, thank you very much.
Any other questions? All right, let me just ask, this is sort of an open-ended question here. It might put our folks a little bit on the spot. You know, we think we've got a wonderful team of leaders in our risk management department here, and we think they've done some extraordinarily creative things. And Ms. Street and her team, as she's been here, are you seeing other counties, other municipalities use this approach to get this broker-consultant relationship established? And are we prepared to go to that level? In other words, Ms. Street believes sincerely that, you know, she's done a lot of good things and she can do some more, but she thinks we need to move to this next level of having this team of resources around us so we can go to the next level in our journey here. So are we ready for that journey? And is this a journey that everybody in the government world should be undertaking? It appears that many of them are not going this direction quite yet.
I think not only is that a great, but it's also a fair question. And so my answer to, not to turn my back on anyone, I apologize, but my answer to that is, I will tell you that it is growing at exponential rates that municipalities are using consulting services to assist. And the reason is because the fees in place will be saved from the plan. I have nothing but confidence that the $195,000 that we put forth will be saved on the overall scope of the plan. This will be a net effect of zero ultimately to pay us. Now, you got to look at that to say we're paying X today. We will find $195,000 in savings. I can say that with confidence to this group. So I'm not worried about that. That's the reason, but also because it's a new world. We're not just placing benefits anymore. When we have looked at other counties that we have relationships with, they are going through this process. But what I like about this process is you're looking at all the different approaches. You're not just looking at cost. You're not just looking at an RFP. You're actually talking to the individuals. That makes all the difference. And so I think this has probably been a little more of a robust process. But I personally appreciate that. I think it's the right way to go because then you know that you've crossed your T's as an employer, and I think you can rest assured that you've made the right decision.
Okay, other questions from anyone here? All right, Mr. Holt, thank you very, very much for your presentation, and we'll stand by for further communications.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all very much. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
So as I mentioned earlier, we had a selection committee, and I hope by robust he means thorough, that was comprised of Mr. Wayne Blair from the school board. He was comprised of Ms. Stevenson, Evelyn Anderson in my office, as well as Ms. Dodd. We had Kelly Perrin from a wellness perspective, as well as Patricia Cox from Premise Health sat in on the committee. Those individuals were the ones who decided who was brought forward to you all today. Now, I'd like to go back to one question that you asked Ms. Allen and elaborate on the financial answer for you. If you will look at the spreadsheet and you will look at the column for Mercer and the column for Willis, you will see right above the fees it says other services offered to Rutherford County. And included in the $750,000 is a spouse dependent audit, and they will cover the FSA administration at Mercer. Included in the proposal for $585,000, they include a PBM audit, which I've explained what that is, to determine errors in claim payments, and he referenced that up there in their pricing model that they have. So that's the difference in the two. And under the Mercer arrangement, they will pay that FSA fee either through a reduction in commission or a direct pay arrangement, whereas we will pay that cost directly should we choose to go with Willis. So that's why you see that gap between those two numbers, is because they are including cost that the county incurs, and they are going to reduce the amount ultimately that they bring in of $750,000 buy those costs either by reducing commissions so that we can pay it directly or paying it on our behalf. So that's where you see the difference in the two numbers occur. You can't go wrong with either one of these companies up here. They've been around forever. When I was with the TPA, they've been top in the industry for a very long time. What I'd like to do is that open the floor, if the chairman agrees, so that some of the members of the selection committee can talk about what they have observed through the interview process and give you feedback from their perspective. I know y'all always just hear from me, but I think that this process was very unique in terms of we've never done this type of bid before, and let you hear from them directly. And I think that would be meaningful to you. And then we can talk about what their recommendation for the committee is as well prior to your vote, if you will allow that.
Okay, who among the review committee team would like to make any comments? Lisa, you've appointed to this gentleman we see sitting back here, Mr. Blair. So this team has talked to, how many folks did we get proposals from?
Well, we got proposals from 7.
7.
And we talked to 4. And we would be in interviews for a couple of hours.
So you've brought these 4 out of the 7 in for intensive discussions. Have you only met with each of them one time?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, so I'm sure this group has interrogated them intensely. So, Mr. Blair, your comments.
Well, I wasn't expecting to have a speaking part today, but it seems like I do. I came in this as probably a very objective third party, and really wanted to have the opportunity to inspect all of the bids. And Ms. Street and I have had several conversations about consulting and advising over the years because of the increases in the health insurance. So I was happy to be involved in this. Of course, we're always going to look for competitive pricing. That's always so very important to us. But listening to the questions from the professionals inside the team that do this every day, they really concentrated on the wellness part of it, the advising and the programs, and also the help with the legal aspect, with the ERISA and all of those concerns. So that's really what I tried to fixate on, was those major concerns that the team had, other than just pricing. And that's how we wound up making our, and it was a unanimous selection, was it not, Ms. Street? Okay.
So unanimous selection with regard to your finalist, or?
Oh, and I think we made a unanimous selection as far as
For the one finalist?
Finalists too, but
Okay,
we
so
brought 2 to this committee.
So you and Ms. Perrigan and Ms. Stevenson, and who else could you, and
Dodd
and Evelyn as well. So,
and Ms. Cox from Premise Health.
all right, so y'all have already had all of these discussions, so, and you've heard more than we've heard from 4 firms, and these 2 in particular, and you narrowed it down to those 2, and you even telling us that your group is pretty much has a consensus on which one of those 2 you think is best overall to move us forward to the next level or 2. Is that right? Is that what you're telling us?
Yes, sir.
All right, so which one of you wants to tell us who that is?
So within the group, did you have something you want to say, Ms. Dunn? Did you start the same thing? Okay. Within the group, once they evaluated the 2 finalists, they came forward with the proposal for Willis to be accepted as the finalist that moves forward. The vote was purely with the selection committee. There was a lot of discussion and debate, and I don't know if anyone has altered that opinion today, having had an opportunity to listen to both presentations again. But as of yesterday, that was still the desires of the selection committee.
So all of the other members of that group that had these discussions you've heard the same thing all this membership, the committee has. Do you still have the same feeling about which one we should move forward with? Anyone object to that? They're all nodding that they're still in full agreement. All right, you've heard this, and you've listened to Ms. Allen.
we've talked about how important the dependent audit is. Do you have any idea what that cost will be? He said it was an additional fee. He was reluctant to put a number to it. Do you have any idea what that cost would be? Because obviously we need to do it.
I can tell you that last time it cost us $106,000 to do it.
And I think we've heard two or three of them say, including her, that every 3 to 4 years would probably be enough. So we might expect to experience this additional cost at least once in this 3-year period.
In the proposal that Mercer had given us today, they had a value on it of $50,000, I believe.
$1,000 for each of those 3 years they were proposing to do it.
Yeah, so their 3-year fee was $750,000, including independent audit, for that one-time audit within that period, and they have a $700,000 excluding the dependent and spouse eligibility audit, so that's $50,000. But our actual expense came in at $106,000 last time, and there were factors that contributed to that cost, and that was a bid process for us as well. So all of those factors would ultimately decide what our true expenses would look like.
This is not new money that we're spending. This is money that the county's already spending currently with Cowan.
We are already spending currently and slotted to spend $757,000 over the next 3 years based on current commissions. And one of the things that I said to the selection committee is that the county has already won in this scenario. We're going to pay similar money, and ultimately, if we decide to proceed with some of these additional costs above the 585 as you're looking at right now, but also an increase in the amount of services that we are currently receiving, or over what we are currently receiving. And I do want to say it is difficult when you're an incumbent and you're not invited to the finalist presentation. And I don't want to be short-sighted and not mention that Cowan has done an excellent job for Rutherford County during the 5 years that I have been here, based on the arrangement in place. And I think that's a very fair statement for them. They came on board through various RFPs process. Their only commitment was to service that particular product that they put on the table, and they rose above that and provided greater service to Rutherford County in those regards. Just through the bids that we had in front of us, there were other offers on the table that exceeded the services that were being shown to Rutherford County at a lower cost, and that's why they didn't make it here today.
Mr. Hall.
I just wanted to say, whenever we're looking at it, and we're looking at the price of it, really these are about the same price. If you look at, we're going to spend 190 million over the next 3 years, the length of this time here on our healthcare services. Is that right? Plus, if it's 60.
Yes, so you're saying 180 million based on 3 years at a 60 million
yeah.
per year rate.
If we did that, plus our property and casualty and things like that, if you were able to get 1% of a reduction out of what we're going to spend on the next 3 years, you'll double your money on any of these plans, or triple it. So I mean, if you feel that there's that much, I'm just talking about being in the old days, long time ago, we used a consultant, and I think there was some mixed feelings about that years ago about how effective that was in leading us in the right direction and things like that. But I feel like these are full staff teams for all the things that we have, trying to get healthy employees, and also make this plan work where when Mary retires, she's got money, to be able to get things. So I think they both did a good job, but the amount is not really that much money when you look at the total money we're going to spend over the next 3 years.
Ms. Stevenson.
I just want to say that based on what we heard in these meetings, the consulting part of it brings a whole new aspect now than it probably did 10, 15 years ago. And the groups that we had before us bring forth so many additional resources for not only Melissa's department, but also for my department, for Paula's, for the HR side of the Board of Education, that the additional tools, while it is a health insurance benefits, it did have some additional benefits. Specifically, Willis had some really wonderful tools that that was included in the packaging. So it's almost like we're getting a 2-for-1, so to speak. And the selfish side of me would have to say that, but both all the people that we looked at had additional tools. It was just that they're bringing more robust packages to the county, and it's an extension of our offices, basically, is what I'm trying to say. It gives us some additional tools to use to vet out decisions or ask questions to help us make the best decisions we can for the county. So I was really appreciative that I got to be a part of it, because I got to see some of the, extras that they had.
And I know that it's been brought up a couple times, how are we going to evaluate them? And readily I admit, I've dealt with Mercer before. I have a comfort level there. I know those folks. I know their work ethic. And I'm committed to bringing that same thing forward out of the recommendation of Willis from the selection committee. It certainly won't be a nice to have. They will work for Rutherford County regardless of whoever we bring on board. And I will take responsibility to ensure that that happens and they deliver on the things that we've heard today.
Ms. Allen?
That's actually one of the questions that I had. The county recently had to litigate a contract for non-performance. Are there specific performance standards that they have to meet that will be contractual obligations? And is there an out for us if they don't meet those?
Yeah, so the contract requirements within the RFP did indicate things that we will require from them from an insurance perspective and so on. One of the things that I require in the contract is a 30-day out. It's not based on the fact that I can show you where you did something wrong contractually. It's 30 days notice and we're out. It could be because you didn't deliver on what you verbally said. And I don't mean to imply that I think that they won't. I'm just saying, or it could be that once we get to working together that we discover they're not the right fit for Rutherford County. I wanted to make sure that the contract was loose enough that we had that 30-day and out clause in there. So that was part of the RFP. And also as part of the due diligence process, I always make them have an officer of the company sign off under each section to make sure that each section is being read carefully. Yeah.
Okay, I just have, Mr. Marlin, I'll let you have one more question.
On the verification, will that come back to us for that fee, or is that just something we're going to let, if it's 100, well, if it comes in 200,000?
So on the dependent verification, well, if we move forward with Willis, what Mr. Holt said was they can do it for a fee, which is normally like a PEPM fee, just a flat fee. They can do a percentage of savings. So as an example, let's say that the $360,000 number from 5 years ago is still correct, right? We would pay them as their fee half of that amount. So we would write out the insurance fund that amount, which would exceed the 106. So we would have to do an evaluation to say what is the long-term best financial scenario that limits our risk.
I guess the question, though, he may be asking is, would this committee have to opine or agree to doing the independent audit and the price and from which we're getting it done?
Yep. So anytime that we are adding cost like that, it always comes before this committee for approval.
Now, one question that hadn't been mentioned, or one odd area, and Ms. Nolan has a very vested interest in this, and she wasn't on this committee. Do both of these proposals include the preparation of these 1099, 1095 forms that are required to report our insurance from all of our employees?
No, they provide compliance support and services.
But surely there's a tool out there they can just punch a button and it's going to spit this stuff.
I can assure you that Ms. Nolan would have already found that based on what she's done the last few months. No, just like our current arrangement is a separate financial arrangement, we are in a one-year contract with SyncStream right now to use that service. We've also used Local Gov as part of the fulfillment process on those. We will have an option through Benefit Focus, which is an additional fee, but we're not set to go live with them until later in the spring. So we will be bringing forward a different solution, and there may be a price tag around that, but that will be discussed at a later date.
That would be it's very much needed. Okay, we've had some discussion. We don't have a motion on the floor. Ms. Hickerson?
I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion that we go with Willis based on the feedback from the primary committee that overseen and spoke with everyone, and based on the savings that we will see. And yes, I do believe, because I have done this for a little while with the county, this is something because of all of the changes on, seems like a daily basis of the laws and things. Ms. Street and her department is only one person with 4 or 5 folks helping her, or 6 folks helping her. So this is something with Rutherford County growing and all of the changes. that are required that we need. So I do make the motion that we do this and we go with Willis as our lowest bidder and best bidder for what we're asking.
Is there a second? Mr. Hall and others I see. Any further discussion from any of you? All right, all of you in favor of that, please say aye. Aye. Are there any opposed? Well, we haven't disagreed on a single item yet today, so that's good. So we better stop while we're ahead, right? Is there any other business anyone wants to bring before the committee? I just want to thank all those people that did support in this review committee, and some of you that are, from time to time are involved in preparing RFPs. This was a very complex RFP, and I think we were very fortunate to have Ms. Street and her team that even have the ability to put out an RFP that really will describe what we want and then be able to evaluate it. So thank you very much. If there's no other business, we are adjourned. Thank you.